they're just pissed. And so,
very pissed.
They hit, kick, bite, scratch, headbutt, scream. That's like my least favorite one. I think I can deal with all the others because I can kind of just like strong arm them away, be like, no, go away. But the screaming.
Thank goodness mine communicates more now, but the worst for me was when they screamed in the car. Because you're in a closed space and it literally would rattle my teeth. Like, I did not handle the screaming in the car well at all. Like, I just, shut down. I was like, I
don't know that most people handle the screaming in the car very well. Mine screamed for 4 hours on a 12-hour car ride.
Oh my goodness, no.
Nonstop. And I was like, the hell. Because it's not his normal behavior.
To pull over, park in a safe place, tend to the child. 4-hour stint. You're not getting anywhere.
He was just mad. We even stopped and got out and walked around at a gas station, went to the bathroom, and I'm thinking, he's going to be in a better mood by the time he gets in that car. Wrong. No, his mood did not change. Apparently he holds grudges and he stays angry a long time. That's what I've learned.
Holds grudges.
But it's that development part of their brain. It just hasn't gotten there yet. They can't be rationalized with. You cannot rationalize with an angry, small child. It's not a thing. And so, anyway, 4 hours of screaming later, he eventually passed out and woke up and was still pissy. So that was even better. I still have no idea what he was so mad about, but that's fine.
You having multiple kids in the same car, you can talk about this too. I had my nephews in the car at the same time as my child, and my child just kept picking and throwing their hand out at their cousin and hitting them on the arm while I was driving. Yes. I was the only adult in the car. And it was incredibly frustrating because my nephew was having a hard time handling it. And I was having a hard time getting my words in to where they could hear me without raising my tone or raising the loudness of my voice because I didn't want it to escalate the situation in the backseat. And I was on a highway, so I couldn't just pull over, because if you are ever in that situation, yes, you need to be in a safe place, and you keep your kiddos safe. And if their screaming is keeping you from making good driving decisions, absolutely, you need to take action to do that. But the side of the highway is so dangerous.
Yeah.
So dangerous.
Better to exit.
Yes,
much better to exit.
Find a safe place to pull over. Don't being on the side of the highway, even if you're on the correct shoulder and everything, it just oh my goodness,
it's just not safe. Yeah, because other drivers
are not. Stop in the. Yeah, no, and I saw someone pull over in the fast lane shoulder one day, and it was a family. Obviously, I don't know what happened, but because I kept going, but I was like, oh my goodness, I would never ever pull over in the shoulder on the fast side of the highway.
No, because we know here in Texas, people are going 20 miles over the speed limit in that lane. It's a given. They're not going the speed limit, which is probably 70 to 75 in most places.
Yeah, there's some places out west that are 85 standard.
Yeah. So that's not pull over. But the kids definitely, right, they're being very aggressive with their actions. They are reaching for a reaction. And that's what they're doing, is they're trying to see what is working to get what I want at whatever cost. So hitting and biting and scratching and hair pulling and screaming are all ways of them to get what they want. And
all mine wanted in that situation was the attention of my nephew. It was just a cousin wanting the attention from the cousin. It's as simple as that.
He wanted them to look at him. He wanted them to look at him.
And sometimes that's all it is. So you just have to use whatever you can in that moment.
Yeah. The biggest thing is to not feed into their reactions, like especially if it's negative, right? Like, their behavior is not I want you to look at me and I want you to talk to me. It's I want that toy you took from me, and they're having their meltdown and they're
Yes.
hitting and scratching and biting. It's much better to, ignore their behavior, put them in timeout in their room maybe or somewhere else, have them sit on the couch. But don't let them sit there and just keep beating on you. Like you need to do stuff that's going to de-escalate. That's the word. De-escalate the
Yes.
situation. Ignoring doesn't always help, but sometimes it can. I found that putting the youngest in timeout works the best. And timeout is him sitting in his room. I really don't care what he's doing in his room as long as he's not breaking stuff. But he's in his room. He's not harassing anybody else. It's just him and his stuff. And if he wants to sit in there and play with his toys once he calms down and quits hitting and screaming and all that fun stuff, then that's fine. But I don't allow for him to do that to any of his siblings or anybody else for that matter. Like we don't tolerate that. So we try to nip that in the bud, and that's the best
Timeout.
way I know how to go about it.
Timeout as a concept is just basically you not giving them their high valued item, right? Like you're not just
Mm-hmm.
handing them a phone or a tablet or something else of high value.
Nope.
Especially at that age, it might just be like a favorite toy, right? Like you said, someone took
Yes.
their toy, they want it back. If you give it immediately back, you're giving into that high valued item. So that's the concept of timeout. And depending on the situation and depending on your child, my child, timeout couldn't be just go be in your room.
Mm-hmm.
My particular child liked to do dangerous activities like climbing things that aren't meant to be climbed, as well
That's
as
true.
biting themselves, scratching themselves, and so they're really not safe to be by themselves in a heightened state. So our timeout was a chair, and it was a soft little Mickey Mouse recliner chair thing that didn't recline; it just like rocked, and but that was the timeout chair. And so whatever we did, we had to stay in the chair. And so if we got up, said, we're going to be in timeout until we count to 10. And then we sit them down. Because this was when they were very young. And very young, you also have to keep in mind that timeout cannot be super long because their
Mm-mm.
mental state doesn't really understand a 7-minute timeout. So
Well,
when they were
no.
very young, we counted to 10, and that was very difficult. But we would stand up, we would hit mom. Nope, we're gonna sit down. We're gonna sit down for until we count to 10. Because if you say 10 seconds, they don't know what any of that means. But we
Time
do
is not a
counting, and so we
concept.
know exactly. So then we'd start. So as soon as we were sitting, whether or not we were raising our voice, as long as we were not hitting, and as long as we were not trying to actively stand up, I was counting. So if I go
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, and then we try and slap, we try and scratch, or we try and get up, or we bite ourselves, nope, that is not a safe behavior. We need to sit down our bottom. And I had to physically put their bottom in the seat sometimes. But you do it
Mm-hmm.
as best you can to not cause discomfort. And it's very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very fine line when you have a child like that.
And you have to be consistent too, because the second you give in at 9 seconds, game over.
Yep.
They know that they can do that again
And,
next time, and they're going to try.
sometimes I was doing that for 30 minutes, but it's one of those things that does end up easing up over time because they
Mm-hmm.
know they're not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I
Don't
hate putting it that
negotiate
way,
with
win and
terrorists.
lose. I don't like putting it as win or lose cuz neither of us are winning in that situation, but in their little mind, if you give in, then they know you are
They
weaker
win.
than them and they just have to
Mm-hmm.
and they just have to wait you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mom will give in at some point. If I just keep this up, mom will give in, and you can't have that because then all hell will break loose all the time, and it'll be an hour next time instead of 20 minutes. You know,
Yes.
like it escalates. Kids are really good at the escalation technique. So it's very important to be consistent in whatever you have to do to keep your kids safe in that moment. I think that's
and whether or not they're fully hearing you, you also have to keep repeating what action is keeping them from leaving timeout.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're doing a new action, you have to use your words saying, this is what you're doing, this is what we're going to do. This is what you're doing, this is what we're going to do.
I always thought your 10-second technique was really good because it also teaches anger management as they get older, right? Because that's one of the things most people are taught is to take a deep breath and count to 10, right? And so you're like...
I definitely have to say that still to this day. Whenever he gets upset, take a breath.
It's a good...
Or I'll say, take 2 long breaths. Can you show me how to take 2 short breaths? Super short. 2 short breaths. And they might be screaming, crying in my face, and I'm still like... Let's take 2 short breaths. Like, try to be silly.
Yes, because you're de-escalating the situation. You're refocusing them on something else that they can actually do. It's not a abstract construct that, that it's out there and they have to think about it. It's, oh, mom's just making silly. Yes. Well, I can do that. And sometimes
I can take 2 long breaths and 2 short breaths. Of course I can do that. Then our competitive side comes out.
Yeah, but it's enough of a distraction that suddenly they're not screaming and having their fit and kicking and hitting or biting or whatever they're choosing to do in the moment. They're now taking silly breaths with mom, and you've de-escalated the situation and you've turned around that behavior. And
then on another thing you did mention on the last podcast, which was telling them to apologize. The same concept goes here. So if they are hurting the person next to them or hurting you, you can explain how you're feeling in that moment and how it's hurting you and how that pain could be similar to another pain. Maybe you're describing an event to that child that they recently had because they're young, right? They're very young. So they may not remember, oh, yesterday I fell off a step and I hit my bottom. Well, when you hit me in the bottom, it hurt. And yesterday, remember, you fell and hit your bottom, and that hurt. So sometimes you have to explain to them to relate pain, because sometimes pain is even a difficult thing to understand, but you can't just say, now you need to apologize to a 1-year-old.
No, because they're like, but I don't, what am I apologizing
That's a very difficult concept.
Nothing.
First of all, what even does that mean?
Nothing. They're not apologizing for nothing, because they did nothing wrong. That's how they view it.
You can make them feel a certain way about the situation, and then you can utilize your words of apologies to then encourage an apology from them over time, but it's not going to happen right away. You're going to say, I felt sorry when you fell and hit your bottom. You can use those words so that it starts becoming normal to them. But you can't just be like, now apologize.
Yep. And when they apologize, you can't be like, it's okay. Because it wasn't okay, or wouldn't have warranted the apology.
No, it was not okay.
We use, I appreciate your apology, or thank you for apologizing. I accept your apology. Those are terms we use, because it wasn't okay. So when they apologize and they're like, I'm sorry, you can't be like, it's okay. But it wasn't, or they wouldn't be apologizing. So I
took that from you because when I was young, I used to say I'm sorry to everything. Like it was a door and I said I'm sorry. And that's a confidence thing.
Yeah.
And as I grew up, as you know, I'm definitely a different confidence level because now I'm like, yeah, I'm a badass motherfucker. Like I say that kind of stuff all the time because I'm building myself up now because I kind of, growing up with a disability, I did have a lot of feedback that I was troubling others. And so it was like nonstop me saying, I'm sorry. And for me, I want people to receive an apology, but not expect an apology. So I'm trying to teach my child how to accept an apology, but not to expect one every single time because another child on the playground may not give them an apology. And we need to understand that, no, that was not okay. And you can go over there and you can talk to this child about how it was not okay yourself. You don't have to come to me right away.
Yep.
If you need to come to me, absolutely. But you can also turn to them and say, I do not appreciate being pushed. And if they do not apologize, you need to understand that it was not okay, but you